Hi, I'm Dr. Bryce Jackson from Connections Achievement and Therapy Center. We have offices in Crozet, just outside of Charlottesville, and we have an office in the Cave Spring area of Roanoke. We offer services to children with a wide range of developmental and traumatic injuries, but we see an awful lot of autism. Sometimes we'll evaluate children, especially on the autism spectrum, who show a difference in the way that one side of the brain is developing relative to the other side, even though it's not always like that. When it is, there's a very clear clinical presentation that we see with that, and that would change the flavor of how you're going to apply the interventions that you would choose to use. So an easy way to understand this is if I've fallen and hurt my left shoulder, if I'm going to go and do some therapy on that shoulder, I'm not going to do it on the right shoulder. I'm not going to do therapy on my knee. I'm going to do therapy on my shoulder. Well, even that's not really specific enough. Well, if I've damaged a rotator cuff muscle, I need to know which muscle and which direction it moves. I need to be as specific as possible. That's going to give me the best outcome for that particular treatment. The problem with the brain is that it doesn't hurt, and you can't see it physically. Even with the technology that we have to see it physically, it still doesn't tell us what's happening functionally, which is to say, you can see an MRI with someone with a brain tumor that's compressing a quarter of their brain. The person's perfectly functional, not any problems at all. You can see a perfectly healthy MRI of a child's brain with autism, and it tells you nothing about the nature of the disorder. When you evaluate the child with autism, there's very specific deficits. So the functional exam can tell us what those deficits are, where they live anatomically in the brain, which side of the brain seems to be the worst, and then we can make the treatments that we use as specific and targeted as possible to have a probability of having the best, fastest outcome. Of the actual therapies that we'll often use eye movements as a way to access different parts of the brain. Almost every part of the brain reflects in an eye movement in some way, not every part, but a lot of parts. So we'll do a lot of work with the eyes. We do a lot of vestibular rehabilitation. I don't know if I've ever evaluated a child with autism who didn't have some type of problem in moving their body or in perceiving movement of their body. That all falls under the category of vestibular rehabilitation. We use a tool called the interactive metronome, which is an evidence-based way to improve motor planning and execution. It's also a way to improve attention and impulse control. It has a whole load of research for the effectiveness. We use it for gait training and head injuries and concussion and stroke rehabilitation. But in autism, specific to autism, we can get improvements in impulse control, attention, motor planning and execution are really the big areas that we look at. We use a few other computer programs, mostly related to either eye movements or cognitive skills. And we use a whole variety of exercises you'll recognize from any PT or OT office related to balance, using a balance beam, doing core strengthening or stability exercises on the mat. In general, the activities that we use are pretty standard, but we're always working to tweak those activities to, one, be specific to the part and side of the brain that we're trying to rehabilitate, and also to be very specific to the individual. So I can very safely say that we've never had the same therapy program or therapy session with any two different people, that each person's treatment plan is going to be obsessively customized to that individual based on the findings of the functional evaluation. And that we find the more specific we can be and targeted we can be in prioritizing what functions we're working on, the better and faster the results tend to be. We are out-of-network providers with most insurances. Everything we do gets billed as either occupational therapy or physical therapy, and we have licensed PTs and OTs on staff that help us implement the therapies that we prescribe. You can always find information about our practices on our website.